Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor, a podcast for financial planners, advisors, and RIAs looking to get the most out of yourself and your business. Join Rob Brown as he walks you through a journey that will allow you to take action in your business and your life so you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now here's your host, Rob.
Welcome back. You're in the right place if you're looking for the Purpose Focused Advisor podcast. Rob Brown here, along with my guest this week, Brandon Snyder, who is the CEO of Alpha Capital Strategies. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Oh, man, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to jump on with you.
Absolutely. And you're down in Lubbock, Texas. Is that right?
Yeah, the nice, windy, flat city of West Texas. And so it's what we always say. There's a couple claim to fame here in West Texas. One, Patrick Mahomes played football here, so everybody knows Mahomes. And two is you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. It's so flat and windy here. So that's the two probably most important things about West Texas.
I've not heard the second one. The Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of sense. I heard somebody the other day, because I knew we were getting ready to have a podcast. Had this interview. So I think I was Lubbock came up and he goes, "Yeah, I live just outside of Lubbock." And I said, "You probably live outside of like the middle of nowhere, right? If you live outside of Lubbock, there's not much around."
No, it's one of those weird places on the planet where if you ever get a chance, go Google Haboobs, and it's where they have those dust clouds come in, and it's about the season right now, March, April, that it does those. But it's one of the coolest places where it's got the prettiest sunsets at night, and there's not a whole lot here, and you can almost see the curvature of the earth right when the sun sets. And believe it or not, there's about 13 counties around Lubbock, Texas that constitutes like 70-80%, something like that, of the United States is cotton. And so we're a huge ag production community around here. And it's one of those places where it's not really a city. It's more of a town, but it's, still 300,000 population, and Texas Tech University's here. So, which everybody, if you're from West Texas, loves Tech. So it's a great place to grow up. Great place.
Yeah. The one thing I know for sure about Lubbock is people who are from there love being from there. It's like, and they describe it like growing up in a town, not like living up in a big East Coast city.
Yeah. It's nice to get to Dallas every now and then, but it's good to be home.
Yeah. So, let's dive in. Brandon, I want to talk first about your story. We call this the Purpose Focused Advisor podcast because we love to learn about the purpose, the reason why our guests have gotten into this business and do the things that you're doing. And I know you have an interesting story. So why don't you talk a little bit about your journey to Alpha Capital Strategies?
Yeah. So I have the most logical way to actually get into financial planning, and that's because I came directly from a print company, because that just makes a lot of sense, but the story really comes to as my old man, incredible person, my parents are, and he was a police chief actually in Shallow but up in Amarillo, and founded or discovered one of the largest embezzling schemes in U.S. history. And they tried to kill him for it. It was a huge story back in the late 90s. He ended up indicting all the people that did it, but they fired him as police chief for it. And so he went back, still indicted them all, did all the right things. He's just an incredible person. But he won the largest lawsuit against a state agency in U.S. history. Back then, they actually changed the punitive damages laws. And I know this is a really weird story to get around to it, but changing that side, he didn't actually get to keep the money. He got to keep, just enough to cover retirement and all the stuff that he lost. There was another suit that came after that, that he actually won as well, called judicial abuse of power, where the judge actually reduces his settlement down. But he got enough money out of it where a lot of people came after him because it was a very public thing back in the 90s of what he won, and not knowing that there was other things into it. So I saw how people interacted around my dad and my family when you're, 12, 13, 14 years old. And then fast forward 10 years, my dad ended up starting a sign and media company that I got into when I was a senior in high school. And then all the way through college, and created an event marketing and advertising agency off it, because we did all the printing for like city buses and things like that, and then got into the national side. So what I figured out early on, when, in your early 20s, is that you could take a lot of risk. And I tried a lot of things, but I really liked business, and I really love the concept of creating a business. And I have that creative nature in it. I like photography. I like things like that. But there's something about a business owner that really has to, wade through all the fears of taking the risk of putting their own capital inside of a business, not knowing if it's going to be successful or it's going to fail, and then just learning and failing forward kind of concept. And that's really what drove me into the opportunity to jump into this business. And fast forward, it's probably around 2007. And I went out on my own with my old man, and we created an event marketing agency. And then 2008 hit, and it's really hard to sell advertising event marketing when you're in the Great Recession. And it's funny, is I was traveling throughout the country. We own the world's largest movable display at that point in time. And it's, my downtimes would be early in the week, and I would be on the weekends. And then me and my wife, after 21 years, we had our second kid, and it was just that time where I couldn't travel. I didn't want to do it anymore, and it was really hard. And so I started getting into posting things about what I was trading. And I got this weird call one day, and it was by a managing partner, and he had this thick Boston accent. And he was like, "Hey, you ought to come do this. I've followed you for a couple of weeks. Just moved to Lubbock." And I was like, "What's this Boston guy doing in West Texas?" And so I met with him. I ended up going to work for one of the largest insurance companies in the world. And I never sold insurance in my life. And I'm talking about life insurance for estate planning, stuff like that. And I was like, "I'll never do this. This is just not me." And he goes, "Hey, hold on one second. If you hit this milestone, we'll put you on the wealth management side." And so, they said it takes about 3 years to do it. And I was fortunate enough, and just with the background of knowing how businesses work, gave me that kind of leg up to be able to communicate and understand how businesses operate a little more efficiently than most people do, especially early on in your career. And so that's what we ended up doing. And I hit that milestone within the first 9 months of a 3-year deal. And then we rolled over, and I became a full-on financial planner, got my Series 766, and just off to the races there, and was fortunate to leave there about 3 years ago in April. I love the company, love everything about them. It was just time for me to go, and I wanted to acquire firms. I wanted to grow it beyond myself, and that structure of a large broker dealer RIA kind of puts you in a box, limits your ability to think outside of what they want you to do. And so it was just a good opportunity for us to look somewhere else. And so we parted ways there, and I started my RIA, and we have a 12-man team now, and just keep on growing it every single year. It's been a lot of fun.
So that moving to your own firm allowed you to really totally scratch that itch of being a business owner and business operator, and kind of open up the landscape for how you would grow, as opposed to just growing as an advisor. You could build a team and build your business around strategies, I assume, that you developed over the years in your former firm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so the difference really is like, when you come from a large RIA firm, they have a lot of back office consultants that had a lot of, tax planning services that a lot of financial advisors use, but they're more consultants. They're not deep dive guys. And most firms have that, right? Back office CFPs, CFAs, CVAs. And so I just brought all that in-house, and I wanted to make it very, very, if you're familiar, a lot of people are, with family office concept. So we created kind of the family office concept here, but we don't operate as family office. We just operate for high net worth business owners. But we give them the experience of having a tax attorney on staff, having CPAs on staff, having a valuation analyst on staff. We actually have a PhD in economics. Our chief economist is actually a professor at Texas Tech. Well, he was at Texas Tech, then he was at LCU, and now he's at Oklahoma Christian. He's the provost of Oklahoma Christian. He's on our investment committee meetings. So we have every financial professional that I can find that is way smarter than me, and then I bring them on the team, and then I just listen real deeply with our clients and what they're trying to accomplish. And once I understand that, I can point them in the right direction of what matters most to them. And they don't have to go hire 15 different advisors out there, because that gets really expensive. They get to use a little bit of everybody on our team.
Right. Well, some people would say you're crazy, because by hiring all those people, you're moving some of that expense from your clients to you, to be able to provide that level of service. Because in the first few years of growing an RIA, even if you've been in the business for a while, your biggest expense is the overhead of the people that you put on your team.
Yeah, it is. And we're doing that strategically right now. Is one of our, we have financial analysts here too as well. And that's probably the biggest aspect of what we're doing, but where really the firm is built in a model of really good growth, smart growth, but a lot of it's acquisition. So it's a lot easier on us and to help more people, because that's at the core of what we want to do. We just want to help as many people as we can. And so I learned, like, I can help another advisor through a partnership, and they can help 100, 200, 300, 400 people. And there's so many advisors out there that's craving the ability to work with higher net worth clients and business owners, but they don't have the expertise to get them to that next hump. And so we kind of fill that void. And so we create a good partnership, typically through some type of acquisition, whether it's short-term immediate on an exiting advisor that's retiring, or it's somebody that says, hey, I got 5 to 10 years left in me, and I just want to be a part of what you're growing, Brandon. And so that's where we really like that aspect of it as much, and just making sure they're a right fit from a culture and ethics and moral standards, because we have a pretty high bar here at Alpha Capital. There's a lot of A players here. And so it's really easy to make sure, it's really hard, but it's easy to hold that standard, but you just got to make sure everybody that's on the team has that same mindset, that we're going to be client focused, education focused, and then we're going to do the right thing above anything else.
So on the individual client side, are you and the advisors that are becoming part of your team focusing on a specific type of client? So are you focusing on that high net worth business owner that's, maybe not in a position or doesn't want to create their own family office? Before we talk about who the ideal advisor is that you would like to partner with, talk about the ideal client for you as an advisor, or the advisors that are part of your team.
Yeah. So the ideal client, I would say, it's very broad here, because we have Texas Tech University is known for probably I think they're the top number one financial planning school in the country. They're at least the top 5. So they have a great PFP program, which a lot of CFPs come out of there. And so I'm kind of spoiled, because, 5 miles down the road, I get to harvest 1 or 2 really smart people that come and works their way up through the firm from a relationship management standpoint to a paraplanner to an actual junior advisor, and then hopefully one day a senior advisor. So we get the opportunity to bring on young guys that want to take over an office, and then we have that same arm that is somebody that's exiting that may be in their late 60s, 70s, or 80s. And then we compare somebody that's gone through our program that usually takes 3 or 4 years to an office, and they know our culture, they know our standards, they know how we do planning, and we allow them to grow to what their skill set is. And so early on, I learned the hard way that I was trying to get everybody to kind of do it the way I wanted to do it in the aspect of, hey, let's go work with business owners, right? We do that. We do it really well. But some advisors like working with the seniors and like working with, hey, I just want to work with families that are retiring. And then we got some that we want to work with the W-2 executives, right? And so it's really nice to have that diversification at the firm. I don't want to dodge your question here. I'll tell you right now, my practice, I work on typically net worths around 10 million, and usually they have a 3 to 5 million all the way up to 100 million EBITDA a company, and they're looking at exiting in the next 10 years of their business, right? That's kind of my skill set. Now we got Gustavo on there. He's been with me as my paraplanner for almost 2.5 years. And he's really focusing on the executive side, and that's his skill set. And so we keep growing it every single year. We try to acquire just 1 or 2, sometimes 3 firms, but we've learned every single transition we've done, what makes sense and what doesn't. And things that we do that a lot of people don't understand that makes a lot of sense, but nobody does it, is because they can't figure it out. Is like, 3 months ago, we just hired a medical director in-house. She's a master's in nursing. And so we do all of our underwriting in-house, and we don't let the insurance companies do them. And so you're like, why would you ever do that? And I was like, well, if you're looking at an estate worth 50 million and they owe $15 million in estate taxes, and they're trying to use estate mitigation tactics with life insurance, then how in the world would it not be in the client's best interest to put their medical underwriting under extreme scrutiny and be able to defend it, so that when we go through the underwriting process, we can ensure the best of our ability that they're getting the best possible rating. And that could be the difference of $100,000, $200,000 premium or a $500,000 premium. We just had a case that we saved the client probably $150,000, $200,000 in premium, annual recurring premium, just because we were able to get a better rating for those clients. And so that's the difference that we look at, is just this massive growth of not being complacent. And I find a lot of advisors hit that limit where they're comfortable. They're taking care of their family, they're doing everything right, and they become very stagnant in their growth and their development. And we flip that on its head and keep on trying to grow and push so that we can expand our capabilities. So, because you never know who you're going to meet, and you might meet the client that needs something. And so we always look for that aspect of it. So hopefully that answers your question. We're kind of broad based on our clients, but each advisor has a skill set.
Yeah. And you really answered both questions, both who your individual clients are and then who those advisors are that would want to affiliate with you and why. So that's great. And I want to applaud you, because this isn't the right way for every advisor to grow, his or her RIA. But what you are doing that is right for every advisor is you're constantly looking for ways to add value to the client relationships by spending the time and the money to invest, to have a nurse on staff for your underwriting, having your estate planning attorney on staff. You're adding value. And I think too many advisors, as you said, get comfortable because many advisors are earning a big part of their revenues from annually occurring fees that are based on the success of the stock market. They've had the wind in their sails, and it's been easy. And then technology also makes it easy. Technology says that, hey, you've got a great financial planning tool, a great investment management tool. You can do some performance reporting. You can just let the work be done for you, and all of a sudden, you're becoming what I call a human robo advisor. You're just kind of painting by numbers, and you're not making yourself more and more valuable. And if there is ever going to be a thing called true fee compression, the advisor who's just dialing it in is going to have that fee compressed, but the advisor who is reaching out and stretching is probably even able to charge more and increase fees because you're going really, really deep with the questions you're asking your clients and the things you're helping them solve.
Yeah, and to touch on that point, because I mean, we're deeply concerned on what's going to happen in the next decade. I mean, you're seeing large language models, LLMs, that are coming out here for the AI, that is reshaping the way that our industry is going to be done in the near future. And so, if you're not on that cutting edge of understanding, I mean, we over the last 3 months, we've studied probably a half a dozen deep studying half a dozen AI systems for financial advisors. And, it's getting to the point where note taking is getting so comprehensive. And we look at it as one, it's going to be a tool, but eventually, if you become too complacent and you become that robo advisor and everything's automated for you, I think there's going to be attrition in the industry where that lower middle tier advisor is going to be replaced with automation to the point where they're not going to need, and you're going to get these conglomerate RIAs, the publicly traded huge ones that are going to come in and take up a lot of that, and the fees are going to be so compressed to that point, it's going to be hard to make a living for a lot of people. So if you don't stay on the cutting edge now, I think our industry is going to change in the next 10 years. And I think a lot of them, I got some really good friends. Our M&A attorney that we work with a lot, he was down here this week, or up here, I guess. He's in Dallas, and he came to Lubbock, and he was saying the same things that happened to the legal industry, right? And CPAs are already in that crunch as well. So I think you're going to have fewer advisors that are going to be more sophisticated, and I think it's all going to be driven to comprehension and being able to take a lot of individual systems inside of our industry, whether it's estate planning and legal and CPAs and legacies and education, all of those, and being able to talk in those spaces and put all the pieces together. Those guys are going to be the ones that survive.
Right.
And I think there's going to be some attrition long-term.
Yeah. I don't think, I totally agree with you. I think there has to be some attrition. And, you look at some of the deals that are getting done by the big PE firms, at some point, they may stop saying, hey, we can't keep paying that big salary to the partner of that firm that we acquired, because it can be done by a less highly paid person, or it can be done using technology with that less highly paid person. So, there's a method to that madness. I don't want to pretend like I can see the future, but it just has to keep coming that way. And I think your point is really good in terms of leading edge and thinking about the technology and the things that you're able to do. But I think also some of it comes back down to relationships and how you are communicating with people and how they really truly trust you and believe that you are engaged in their lives and they are as important to you as the advisor as you tell them that they are. It's not about having a false value conversation where you justify your fees based on some chart created by Vanguard. It's based on really knowing what that deep relationship is like. And so you're doing that through cutting edge and building a really diversified team of a lot of professionals, which leads me to a question I wanted to ask you. In your tagline, you talk about one of your goals is to help people move more powerfully. What does that mean?
It's kind of like our mission statement. We got a good mentor way back when that a lot of people, I would say, float through their business. A better way to say that is they work in their business too much instead of on their business. And they don't have the knowledge or even the wherewithal to understand. And that's where we kind of move people, 2 degrees off center of where they're at, just giving them a wider perspective. And if you give people wider perspective and listen to them, like you were talking about, internalizing their story, the season of life that our clients are in, really giving them back, like, hey, if you make these slight adjustments in your business, because we got financial analysts. And so we can sit down with the business owner and go like, what's your net margins of your business? What's your EBITDA? What's your operating income? Right. And they don't know. And I'm going, they know how to build a widget or provide this service, and they're extremely good at it. And they're really good at that gut of saying, hey, I don't want to take this risk, and I do want to take that risk, but they don't know why. So we get to fill that gap. And it's really fun of sitting down with the business owner and going like, hey, do you want to learn a little bit about the financial side of your business? And what's the valuation of your business? How are you going to exit? What blind spots do you have in your business? And we try to uncover that. I'm not saying that we're business consultants, that we go in and we're not some sell-side investment banker and selling your business for you. That's not what we do. We just come in alongside of you like your chief investment officer. And we go like, what are you doing with the excess capital on your books, right? Are you taking too much risk here? Are you staying within your risk parameters? Do you know what your actual true margins are? And we go through that exercise with them. And we actually have a nice little software that we use that allows them to see visually in both, because people absorb that information differently, from graphs all the way to actually looking at a P&L statement of their business and saying, why is this working this way? And a lot of it is just risk mitigation. Most business owners understand how to make money. They're good at it. That's why they're in business, right? But a lot of them don't understand that when they're taking too much risk, and they need the guy sitting on their shoulder a little bit going, hey, it's okay that you do this. Just understand you can't take this risk and then take this one as well, because you might unwind a year or a decade's worth of progress or go bankrupt. And so then they're on the other side of that coin, where they have so much capital in their business, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to get it out of their business. They don't know how to do it tax efficiently. That's for dang sure, right? And then the tax environment is moving so rapidly, and they just want, in the CPAs we work with, we love them. We're not CPAs. We have those guys. We just don't file returns. We don't act as your CPA. We don't act as your attorney. That's why the firm's called Alpha Capital Strategies. We come on the strategy side because most CPAs and attorneys, or just take CPAs, for example, they're there to make it on time and compliant. They're not there to make it efficient. They're trying to file hundreds to thousands of returns a year. Our job is to understand the client's story, because we meet with them every month or every quarter, and we sit down and have those deeper conversations on what they're doing. And then we just let the CPA know. And because we can speak their language, because we got these guys on our staff, they can talk at a high level, efficient, where it doesn't cost a whole lot of money, and get a more effective return out of it. And you can do that for the legal. You can do that on entity structures or selling or whatever it is. So the moving clients powerfully, it's just giving them 2 degrees different perspective of where they are today and where they want to be, and giving them the vision and helping them see what they're trying to what their goals are, because most business owners don't even have a goal. They're just there to work in the business, right? They're not even working on the business, and they're just, taking a vacation every couple of times a year and going to the kids' sports game and enjoying life. It's a great life, but it could be a little bit better if they had the foresight of saying, what am I trying to accomplish? And most of them can't answer that question.
Yeah. And that is true, I find, for many advisors who have built successful businesses. I mean, you use that description of somebody sitting on your shoulder, kind of looking at what you're doing, offering that wider lens. That's what I do every day with my clients, is to say, okay, let's really take a look at why you're doing what you're doing, where you're going. What are you ignoring because you're so focused, because you are such a good advisor, taking care of your clients and having that great communication and doing the planning and doing the investment management. But what about that business part of your business? Because you've built something really valuable. And I'm often surprised that some advisors don't even understand that perhaps their greatest single asset is their business, because they don't look at 100%. It that way. They look at it as an income generating machine that pays their bills really well. It's allowed them to put a bunch of money in the bank or wherever. But it's also an asset that needs to be taken care of and protected and positioned so that it can do some of those other things.
And you hit your nail head. You really, really pointed out something here that you got to make a good point on this. It's like, their asset is their business, but most of their assets are 80% in the business. And I mean, because think about it, most business owners, all their vehicles are in their business, right? They take vacations and lunch, and they do it respectfully and honoring and within the code, the IRS code, but they run a lot of things through their business. And so if that disappears one day, man, their life is really shooken up. But if you really look at a business owner and you say, I'm going to do financial planning or personal financial planning with the business owner, what does that mean? Like that's only like 15, 20% of their net worth. The other 75, 80% of it is literally in the business. So to be a really good fiduciary financial planner to business owners, that you have to understand how the business and understand business planning. That transition is so important to say, okay, we got this massive asset that you're always pouring money back into, or you're taking money out of it. If we don't do the planning for both sides of the arm here, then it's a disservice. I don't think you're being a really good fiduciary.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that business owner client is maybe one of the more misunderstood because some advisors want to shy away from that because it does require that extra level of understanding. And some might say, well, I work with small business owners, something like that. And that just maybe is just a way to describe a false niche. But there are these,
that's what I find.
These bigger business owners with, you described it from a $3 million to $100 million EBITDA. Those are really, really valuable businesses that mean a lot to not just the business owner, but to their family, their community. It's something to protect and take care of and have discussions about, because they've created something that is it's powerful, and there's a reason that God put them in that seat that they're in to be doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah, it's fun on that side of it, and it makes it challenging because I guess I would be a really horrible advisor if it's just not my skill set. I like learning about how they became wealthy in their business and whether they developed a patent or a drug, or, they started a construction company. I got so many different clients that are, in the ag industry, in the oil industry. I'm 100 miles away from, Midland, Texas, where the largest concentration of oil is probably in the United States, arguably. And so I get to dip my toe into a lot of industries, and I try to learn as much as I can. And then I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, and that I really find great people around me to bring them in that becomes an expert in that. And so a lot of our time that clients don't see, they see the, hour, 2 hour meetings that we have, every month or every other month, or, different cadence for every client, but they don't see that the 100 hours we spend in the back end analyzing their story of where they're at, and working with all these partners to say, hey, what's the right fit for them, to make sure that when we do have that time, that face time with the client, because these people are high level executives, they don't have time to jack around typically. And so they get in a room, and it's pretty go to business. It's
Sure.
like, hey, what are we working on today? Right.
Yeah.
And then let's get out, because they got other things to do. And it could be anything from buying a jet to, turning around and selling an oil and gas company, and everything in between. Right. So it makes my job a lot more fun, but I'm always astonished how little I know, because the industry is so vast. And I think a lot of advisors, the biggest takeaway is, one, is you got to make sure you have enough runway. Meaning every advisor's runway early in the business is their bank account. So you got to make sure there's enough of that in there to be able to learn and get good at something. And then have great conversations, and then try to learn every time you have a new client on a new strategy and put it to work. And so, there's hundreds and thousands of strategies out there, and there's probably millions of different combinations of them. So you just want to make sure that you're disciplined on, you're doing it specifically for that client. And I find a lot of advisors try to get the education first, and they want to learn everything about all there is, but then they end up running themselves out of business because they're extremely overly educated, but they can't apply anything. And so great mentor of mine said, you'll be able to learn, but you're going to have to learn, and I'm good at this, is learning on my feet. When I get and being able to be honest and transparent with the client. I hadn't ran across that issue or strategy, and then just getting back in a room with my team and analyzing what that is and figuring out what's the right deal and finding the right people that can execute it for us, whether it's a strategy or it's a concept that people are using. And I always tell our clients, though, if you can't scratch it on the back of a napkin, it's typically so complicated you're probably going to end up in a courtroom somewhere, because it's, there's a lot of fly-by-night guys out there that do a lot of advanced, especially on the tax side, advanced stuff that just doesn't pass the smell test sometimes.
Right. Well, that just sounds like some good old Texas common sense. So you said something that I think is really important. And I remember this from my first week of training as an advisor, and this goes back decades, was the person doing the training said, who actually was from Texas, come to think of it. He said, if you don't know the answer to a question, say that you don't, but then you're going to go and get it for them, and you'll gain a lot more respect than by bluffing them and pretending like you know. And I've always thought that is just such an important piece of information, whether you're brand new to the business and you don't know anything of anything, or you've been at it a long time, but you run into, as you said, this situation you've never run into before, and you want to help somebody figure it out. And it's the computer between your ears that's going to allow you to figure that out over time by adding the right information to it, or the right people.
Yeah. And I find, in fact, I would say 100% of the time that not only would the client or the situation respect you more, and there's a way to do that. There's a way to do that respectfully and honoring. And I think the language that we use is half of our power, and being able to say, that's a really great concept, a really great idea. Let me sit back and do some research, internalize this myself, and analyze what's the right course of action for you in your situation. And then we'll get the right guy on the team to make sure that fits what you're trying to do. And we'll run it through your other advisors, so everybody's in the know. And they respect that side of it, but they also understand that you don't know everything. And as soon as they start getting high end of guys, they start getting the sense that you think you know everything, boy, that those radars go off in them. Right. Yeah. And so the more genuine you become, the more honest you become with them. But you can still carry the dialogue. You can hold yourself in a manner that you're okay not knowing, and they're okay working with you to help educate that side of it. Now, sometimes they're like, hey, Brandon, this is a deep one here. Let's go and let's learn together. But this guy already does this for us. And I'm not there to replace somebody else that they're working with. So I'm okay with that, because, over half of our revenue for the firm doesn't come from product or wealth management. It comes from planning fees. And so clients pay us not to sell them a product. They pay us to have deep conversations with them. They pay us to understand their story and to make sure that they're getting the quality of services and value through that comprehensive planning side of it. So it's very, very good to know, one, what your net worth, your worth is. So you got to make sure you price yourself right. And that's hard to do in some cases, because sometimes you're looking at a massive case and you're like, I'd love just to get the wealth management side. And those are the cases you typically don't get anyway. So you might as well just stay in your lane and try to learn from these guys. And I probably learn more from my clients, just because I get to, experience what they're working at in the oil and gas industry or farming or medical, right? So I get to dip my toe in there, and I ask them as many questions as I possibly can. This is why I think we all like podcasts, and we like interviews, and we like doing this, because it goes right along with our day job, right? So we're always interviewing clients on, what their story is. And so it makes it a lot of fun for us.
Yeah. I have a great client, Casey, and he was intimidated when we first started working together to work with higher net worth clients, because he figured like he needed to study it. He needed to know it more. And I said, just go out and meet them. They're people. Have a conversation. You're great at asking questions. And it just exploded a portion of his business, because all of a sudden he was opening up the dialogue, these people that he was hesitant to have a conversation with, because he didn't want to embarrass himself, and he wasn't going to, but he didn't have that confidence to know, hey, I'm the smart guy. I know how to ask good questions. We can figure this out in some way. If I can help you, it's going to happen. And he's turned it on in a big way. So Brandon, it is time to land the plane. Any last idea or thought that you want to leave with the audience? And then after that, maybe tell us the best way for someone to get in touch with you, whether they're looking for the help of a financial advisor or they're a financial advisor looking for a new home.
Yeah. So the advice, if you're talking from a financial advisor standpoint, like advice to other advisors, that would really come down to, you got to really have that vision of what you want your practice to be, because it is so diverse and there's so many aspects of it. So you really find out what you enjoy, and then learn and seek out people, clients, colleagues, other professionals, to make sure that they're along the same lines of what you're trying to do, right? And so I don't go work in so many aspects of the business, and I don't seek out a lot of people that are on that, because they have great careers. They do a lot of stuff and they like that process. Like, I'm not there to do, employee enrollments on 401ks. That's just not what my skill set is. I have a really good colleague of mine that she absolutely loves that, just loves that aspect of it. And she's got a great team around her that does that. So I always look back that if you're going to get into this business, or you're in this business, really have a plan or a vision of what you want it to look like. And then how are you going to get there? And then it becomes a lot simpler then, because you just reverse engineer the steps that go into what's going to make you successful. And if you can stay along those paths, there's going to be hiccups. You're going to fail forward. You'll end up in a better place at the outcome inside of there. That's the first side of it. And getting a hold of me is pretty easy. So our website's alphacapitalstrategies.com. We serve pretty much nationwide at this point in time, but we're pretty centered around in the South, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, Arkansas, that area. Have some clients in Florida, just like anybody else. Have some clients in Indiana. Clients refer clients to other clients, and they're all over the country. You know how that goes.
Sure.
But mostly in the South on that side of it. And then we have Pursuing Alpha. We have a podcast of our own. And so we actually interview business owners, and we have some of our tax attorneys on there. We have some of our CPAs and financial analysts on there. So, allows our clients to actually get a sense, because building trust is the other thing of that. So if you're an advisor, you got to build trust, and you got to do it quickly, and you got to do it where you just show competence. But showing competence today is getting really, really hard because there's a lot of noise, and I think there's a lot of access to advisors. So that's probably the best two ways to get a hold of us is just go to our website or check us out on the Pursuing Alpha as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, Brandon, I appreciate your time today on the podcast. I'll be sure to put the link to Alpha Capital Strategies as well as to your podcast in the show notes to make it easy for our audience to find you. To the audience, thank you, as always, for listening in. We'll see you next week. And remember, we're rooting for your success. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Purpose-Focused Advisor. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, truestfancoaching.com. There you'll learn all about becoming a purpose-focused advisor. You'll also find today's show notes and links to the other gifts and resources we talked about during the episode. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, we're rooting for your success.